Hello everyone, my name is Gregory. I am the Dragon King and this is the Dragon's Den, and thank you for coming to the Dragon Kingdom. This morning, we got some interesting stories and we're going to go ahead and put them out. One of them is a very kind of routine politic scenario involving who, Donald Trump. The second story is about Africa and its um, calling in their markers in regards to the slave trade, reparations, and the last story is Tory Lanez and how he's running for his life in prison. All right, so let's go. Now, we all know that Donald Trump is possibly running for office yet again, and he's up in the polls according to all the polls that are out there, if you believe any of that. But for those that want an interesting visual to be entertained, Donald Trump is the master of entertaining people. We don't necessarily like him as liberals, but we laugh because it's laughable and he's laughable. But the things that he's saying is always of just a high level of being hilarious and just being unfathomable to the average somewhat intelligent person. And I'm just amazed that he's able to do what he's doing under all the scrutiny of the indictments and things of that nature. So let's get into this story. Now, some of you may remember he did an interview with an NBC journalist, and he basically this was his second coming. This was his, his speech for re-election that he was given impromptu and informally to this NBC journalist investigator. So let's get into the story. I got this, it says raw story, and where did I get this from? I always got to cite our sources. I'll put the link in the description. I believe it came from Microsoft.com, and so I guess raw story is like a investigative piece or whatever, I don't know. But let's read it. This story was done by David McAfee. It was done by David McAfee. They are a true threat. Trump threatens to go after NBC News if reelected. That's a tall order to be going after a whole national broadcasting company. That's a whole tall order. Most people can't pull that off. I don't think nobody in history has really ever pulled it off where they were successful and we didn't see that large of an entity anymore in the media. It just doesn't happen, but in his mind, he believes he can get it done. Let's go on. Donald Trump said on Sunday that he intends to thoroughly scrutinize and limit NBC News and other news agencies if he's reelected president in 2024. So clearly he has an agenda. Clearly he wants to destroy a media outlet because they don't create, manufacture, and distribute the stories that he wants to be done about him. Nobody wants bad stories to be created, manufactured, and distributed about them, but this right here is absolutely utter nonsense. He's taking on an entity like NBC. NBC has been around longer than Donald Trump has been alive. They've survived mergers. They've survived all type of, different changes in broadcasting. They've survived the world just as many people do and many corporations do. So he's going to have an uphill battle, which we all know is nonsense and he won't win. All right. Story goes on to say they are almost, according to Donald Trump, they are almost dishonest and corrupt. But Comcast, with its one-sided and vicious coverage by NBC News and in particular MSNBC, often and correctly referred to as MSDNC, Democratic National Committee, should be investigated for its country threatening treason, Trump wrote on Sunday. Come on. Today is the 25th of September 2023. It's about 8:33 a.m. Central Time. So, so clear, he wrote this yesterday on the 24th. He also goes on to say there are the former president added that their endless coverage of the now fully debunked scam known as Russia, 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 and much else is one big campaign contribution to the radical left Democratic Party. There was a time when he was a part of the Democratic Party. First of all, the man is just trying to establish with his base who's the enemy. He does it all the time. He's saying these things, so again, it's a dog whistle. Anybody that is reporting for NBC, anybody that is doing any type of work for NBC, that is his dog whistle to go after them. So if and when he is allowed to start his campaign, run for president, these people already know that NBC is the problem. NBC is the catalyst, the sword in his Achilles heel. So he's already setting the groundwork, just like he did for January 6th, my opinion, to have them rush to Capitol grounds. Okay. So what this is nothing more than a dog whistle. It goes on to say he promised to seek retribution once in office again. Okay. What else? It says to be thoroughly scrutinized for the knowingly dishonest and corrupt coverage of people, things, and events, he said, arguably challenging the very notion of American free press. Yeah, and in American free press, and he abused a lot of that press. He knew that Fox News he could go over there on Fox News and spread all the lies he wanted, but was he abusing it? And that's the real question. When he was on Fox, when he was on Twitter, was he abusing the free press? I would say yes. So he goes on to say, why should NBC or any of the corrupt and dishonest media companies be entitled to use the very valuable airways of the USA for free? So basically what he's saying is, if he can't punish him, they should be charged. If you're going to spread rhetoric about him, you should be fined for it. Nobody, no president, no public official, no public personality, locally, globally, nationally, otherwise, has ever tried to sue a network because they were reporting on what they were doing. That's not how that works. And Donald Trump knows that that's not how that shit works, but he's going to pursue it anyway. He goes on to say that the NBC is a true threat to democracy. NBC is a threat to democracy. A threat to democracy is allowing you, a president who's been indicted, to be reelected, to create even more division. All the lies that have been, you've told, all the different underhanded, unauthorized, unethical stuff that you have been charged with, and give you another 4 years of destruction. I don't think so. My opinion. He says, and are in fact the enemy of the people. No. The fake news media should pay a big price for what they have done to our once great country. Again, he's sending out dog whistles. My summation of all this is basically, again, he's setting up the standard. He's creating the dog whistle once again, like he did when he made that speech before those mindless drones and artificial intelligence, and I love artificial intelligence, went down to the Capitol building and started storming the Capitol building. This is nothing more than a dog whistle to set it up, to get prepared. I don't know if Donald Trump knows anybody who has affiliate stations for NBC and all the other media conglomerates that don't care for him. I'm sure if he did, they wouldn't be broadcasting anything but Donald Trump. And can you imagine that? You know, talk about the Stockholm syndrome. You know, Stockholm syndrome for you new and young people is when people's captors, they begin to adapt the emotions and feelings and the actual objective and focus and mindset of their captors, where they start to love them, protect them as if they're the good guys. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what the Stockholm syndrome is. It happened with Patty Hearst, according to records. But anyway, yeah. So it's a dog whistle for those of you that support Donald Trump. Then you've already heard it. You already on the prowl. But for everybody else, this is an absolute absurd thing that anybody could ever say about anybody. Fox News isn't necessarily a great place for a Democrat, but you don't hear them saying that Fox News is a crime to humanity and a crime to the USA. They're doing a lot of stuff, and a lot of people have come close to saying that Fox News and the journalists over there are doing the very same thing that Donald Trump is blaming NBC for, but it hasn't been said. It's been close to being said. It may have even been implied, but it hasn't been said. That's how you know this man is. We don't need him for another 4 years, in my opinion. Okay, so we've moved on. Now we're going to go to the second story. This second story is not new. It's something that people have been discussing for years, and they want answers. They want accountability. And they want it in the form of reparations. Reparations. They want that. And Africa, the continent of Africa and other countries, and a lot of the countries in Africa, they've been moving a certain kind of way. They've created their own AU, which is called the, what is it called here? We're going to get into the story, but just to give you a little heads up, it's called the AU, the African Union. They are banning, they're creating the African Union with a lot of other Muslim countries, and they're trying to create something, an alternative to the Union. They're trying to create a better way of controlling what's going on in their country, their laws, and creating systems that work for them and that they feel like they can be more part of. So let's get into the second story. Okay. And I got, this is from Clever Rebel, another one of Microsoft's, I guess, offshoots. I'm not sure. It's from Clever Rebel, and the story was done by John Berry. It was done by John Berry. And it says, African leader to UN, reparations must be paid for slavery and justice. Reparations must be paid for slavery and justice. Okay. Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo addressed the United Nations General Assembly, urging African nations to receive reparations for the historical injustices stemming from the transatlantic slave trade. Akufo-Addo emphasized the developed world's historical role in enslaving Africans and called for reparations to acknowledge the unpaid labor of millions. And that's been a topic that's been going around here in the United States for at least 20 years now. Longer than that in smaller circles, lesser known circles. He goes on to say he highlighted that much of Europe and the United States prospered from the wealth generated by the transatlantic slave trade. Obviously, the South, some places in the North, definitely Central America, the Caribbean, all of that. Brazil. The president has been a vocal advocate for reparations, pushing for discussions and formal apologies by European nations involved in the tyrant. I believe there was the president. Let me see. I don't think I'm gonna get this right. There was what was the president's name? There was a president recently on Good Morning Britain, and he was from one of the African nations, and he expressed how he believes that the UK and other places, but definitely the UK, the focus of the UK owes them millions, possibly billions in reparations. And it is not the first time I've seen a representative from an African country say that. But it's also been something that you want to hear more of, because whether you believe it or not, a lot of the slave owners who owned slaves, and when slavery ended, they basically said, we want to be paid for our property. We want to be paid for this commodity. All of them were paid. I think the UK just finished paying off a few families maybe 30, 40, probably 50 years ago. But just imagine, the slave owners want you to pay them because you're getting rid of their commodity, you're getting rid of their inventory, so they want you to pay them, and that's exactly what was done. It's unfortunate, but it was done. So he goes on to say, for centuries the world has been unwilling and unable to confront the realities of the consequences of slave trade, but gradually this is changing, and it is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Granted that current generations are not the ones that engage in slave trade, but that grand inhumane enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Basically, the UK, the European nations, the United States, and a lot of other places. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade. No amount of money will ever make up for the horrors. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it would make the point that evil was perpetrated, that millions of productive Africans were snatched from the embrace of our continent and put to work in the Americas and the Caribbean without compensation for their labor. And that makes sense. What those reparations would look like in my mind, I mean, some might say land, 40 acres and a mule. Whatever happened to that, a lot of people didn't get that. You could argue it could be something else, another form of reparations. I don't know. You all let me know in the comments what you think that would be, if you believe that, that should be the case. Goes on to say, if there are any hesitations in some minds about the painful reparations, it is worth considering that the fact that when slavery was abolished, the slave owners were compensated. When slavery was abolished, the slave owners were compensated for the loss of the slaves because the human beings were labeled as property. They were labeled as property, deemed to be commodities. Surely this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore. The AU has authorized Ghana to hold a global conference on the issue in November in Accra. So clearly, people want, reparations. This conversation is not going anywhere. You can be upset as a UK person, a European person, someone who has, quote unquote, I've helped a lot of black people, or I've helped a lot of people of color. This conversation is not going anywhere. And the way Africa has been moving, like I said, creating the AU and all of that, there's something going on there. Goes on to say, he also called the intergovernmental organization into question. We cannot continue to preach democracy, equality, and good governance around the globe. We cannot insist on peace and justice in the world when our global organization is seen by the majority of its members and the people of the world as hampered by an unjust and unfair structure. Makes sense to me. Okay. He went on to say that African countries continue to lose over $88 billion annually due to illicit financial flows, and call for these funds to be returned to the continent. Some might argue, well, you figure out what's going within inside the government. You know what I'm saying? Is it, and the corruption is everywhere. So I would start there first, get rid of those obstacles, and then you see what's the bigger network in regards to the corruption and the illicit flow of finances being drained out of the country. Been going on for years. They've been stealing, they've been mining. They come over there, they buy land, they buy mining rights and all of that, and then they just do whatever they want to do because the government in those countries have sold it to foreigners. Foreigners bought it, they bind it, and they own land. I mean, it is what it is, unfortunately. I don't disagree, but there's a lot to be done here. Nando Akufo-Addo says he questioned why recipient countries retain such money while labeling the source countries as corrupt. Okay, makes sense to me. These countries that go to Africa, they steal, they some are mining illegally, some are illegally resourcing these resources. They don't have the proper permits. They're stealing, basically, is what he's saying. But yet Africa is deemed as corrupt, but you are part of the corruption. You have facilitated. You have manufactured the corruption, but because it's over here in Africa, we're the problem. So I get that too. Akufo-Addo suggested establishing a joint task force between the African Union Commission, the AU, and the OECD Secretariat to prevent these outflows. He emphasized the need to achieve sustainable development goals and stated that it is within Africa's capacity to make positive changes. I was watching a YouTube video once. I don't know what it is. I'll try to link it if I can find it. And in that video, whoever the narrator was, he basically said that if Africa stops every other country from doing anything in Africa, all the other countries will cease to exist. He basically is saying that if Africa said no more mining, no more resources, if Africa puts the close sign on every country in Africa, the continent, the world is done. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that because Africa is providing resources to every country in the world. Every country in the world, they're providing some type of resource. And if Africa says the store is closed, I believe that the rest of the world will crumble. I really do. And that's just my opinion. But that video only confirmed what I thought. So, his comments shed light on the urgent need for addressing historical injustices, promoting global cooperation, and rectifying economic and social inequalities. There is I'm going to link all this in the description, but there's a picture. And what they call a related video says, demonstrators in Ghana rally against government due to economic crisis. I'll link all the different links to the story. And in this photo, it says, there's an African man I'm assuming he's one of the Ghana demonstrators. And there's a quote on the picture of him. It says, "We are here and we will fight. If no one cares, the youth cares. And when the youth cares, you fill in the blanks. It's usually meaning that they're going to make some change. Hopefully that's what they do." So for those of you who are interested in the story, I will link it. The last story is basically it's a story of how gangster are you? How much of that street do you really feel like you about? Because I'm not from the street, and I'm not in no gangs. Don't have no feeling, and not at all. Thank you. And for those that do, more power to you. But this story is about somebody who, perpetrating, fronting, and, once they get behind bars, it's a whole different story. Tory Lanez is reportedly, let's get it right, according to lovebscott.com, that's lovebscott.com, Tory Lanez is reportedly scared for his life in prison. His size is definitely a factor, or a setback, more like setback. And this story was, today is the 25th, I got the story on the 24th of September 2023. Let's get into it. Story goes on to say, Tory Lanez is reportedly afraid for his life now that he's been transferred to state prison after being found guilty of shooting Megan Thee Stallion. Okay. It says, Tory is scared for his life and safety in prison. He feels like he is an instant and direct target because of his celebrity status. Let me tell you something. I don't listen to a lot of rap. I'm of a certain age. The kind of rap I would have listened to is long gone. They're still legends, but it's long gone. It is what it is, right? But I have listened to certain types of music along the way because in the last 30 years plus, everybody's sampling those rappers that I listen to music because they sample somebody's music. So, you kind of stay in that loop, as it were. Not necessarily for the artist, but for the music that they have sampled, and it's almost a nostalgia type thing. So I've never heard of Tory Lanez prior to this whole Megan Thee Stallion thing. I don't know if I'm not sure if he's from Canada. Y'all put it in the description box. Let me know what that is all about. I don't know how many Canadian rappers that we have, or been in the rap game. I'm not quite sure. Drake is one, but I'm, like I said, I'm not a rap connoisseur, but growing up rapping in the 80s and early 90s, some people say Drake wouldn't even qualify. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on who you talk to. But anyway, Tory Lanez, I've never heard of him until he, did this to Megan inside that vehicle. Okay. It says the rapper arrived at North Kern State Prison, Delano, California, last week after being sentenced to a decade behind bars. TMZ has reported that he's been held in administrative segregation. That's, by yourself, isolation, basically, because of your status. I think sometimes people will hold you in administrative segregation because you're gay or you're a celebrity or, trans and things like that. Because of his high-profile status, which keeps him largely apart from other inmates. Exactly. According to the outlet, Lanez is escorted to the shower where he bathes by himself. And if he chooses to spend time in the yard, he'll be the only one in the fenced-off area. So he has the privilege right now to have these escorts, to have these. Sound like he still got celebrity status. Sound like it to me. That's just what it sounds like. The story, the TMZ also said he stands in at 5'3". So his size is definitely a setback, a source the insider added. He is housed with real hardcore criminals, murderers. So he's really hoping that his lawyers will be able to continue to fight for his freedom while still maintaining his innocence. The whole thing is a mess. So basically, he's trying to get an appeal. They're working on an appeal. I didn't do it. Let's figure it out. Let's work something out. Something like that, right? It says just this month, another inmate in that same facility who's reportedly serving life sentences, not life, for multiple killings, was charged with first-degree murder in connection to the untimely death of his cellmate. Okay, I'm gonna get back into this. He pleaded not guilty to killing somebody in his cell. A former inmate at the same prison was convicted this month of attacking two staffers in 2020. 31-year-old rapper L.L.C was sentenced to 10 years for shooting Megan Thee Stallion in August. He was found guilty of shooting rapper Megan Thee Stallion in feet after the pair left a party at Kylie Jenner's home in Los Angeles 2020. Said his family is concerned for him as well, especially his dad. Well, as much as his dad has been praying for him, and all that Holy Ghost spirit and righteousness, he can't get, his God on the main line and tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Okay, yeah. They're all trying to keep his spirits up. The source said he definitely had his moments where he has teared up. Okay. And that in jail he is realizing who his real friends are. Oh, you made some already? Okay. TMZ reported that he will be moved from his current state prison home to another facility where authorities decide where he should serve the rest of his sentence. Well, good luck to you, brother. L.L.C pleaded guilty to shooting Megan Thee Stallion to 3 felony charges in December, including assault with a semi-automatic firearm, as well as carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle and discharging a firearm with gross negligence. And the article says, are we supposed to feel bad for him? Well, I guess some people are still going to feel bad for him. Just like they feel bad for, I don't know. I said this in a tweet once, but I'm going to say it again. A lot of these rappers and gangsters and street people, that's their life, right? What I never understand, and I got to go. I'm going to make this quick. What I never understand is, I never make things quick, but that's the beauty of my job. What I never understand is you live a life of where you're exiting people from this world. You're doing all this stuff. But yet, 5 minutes later, you will pray that your God, because I don't worship God, you will then pray for your God to protect you. You've just exterminated an existence of life. You've off somebody from the on switch of life, but yet you want somebody to, you pray. All these gangsters and rappers out here, they will do a concert, talking about doing stuff, taking somebody from the off to the on switch of life, and then you will pray just before you start the event. You don't did this, but you won't pray. You're fucking delusional. You're fucking delusional. You offering somebody from the existence of life. You taking them from the on switch to the off switch in life. And you gonna pray that you be protected by the God, because I don't worship God. The Jesus, all that Bible stuff is crazy. It's nonsense, really. And why gay people do it, I have no idea. But you expect your God to protect you then from your haters. When you've talking about this stuff, when you took somebody from the on switch to the off switch of life, you're fucking delusional. You're delusional. And then you make threats, you try to hurt people, but then when you get in situations where you now have realized that you better be so entwined with how you live your life, otherwise you're not going to make it behind. Because if someone doesn't take you from the off to the on switch in life once you get to prison, the very nature of the psychological damage is going to do to you is going to take care of that for them. I don't get that. I don't understand that. I understand. Anyway, thank you all. I appreciate you being here. My name is Gregory. Once again, I am the Dragon King. Thank you for coming to the Dragon's Den, and you're always welcome to come to the Dragon Kingdom. For those of you, don't forget to subscribe, like, share. You can become a knight. You will be knighted. when I reach a certain when I get like 500 subscribers, I will knight everybody. No, when I get 100 subscribers, those who have been with me, you will be knighted. But you would have to have been here for more than 30 days. You know what I'm saying? You will be knighted. That's what I'm going to do. The first 100 people that subscribe, I will have a knighting ceremony. We will talk about whatever, do a live and all that. So I'm going to write that down when I reach 100 subscribers. Everybody that was here for more than 30 days, you will be knighted. You will become one of my knights here in the Dragon Kingdom. And I am King Gregory. Again, subscribe, share, tell everybody about it. Thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate it very much. So I'm Gregory once again. I am the Dragon King. You are in the Dragon's Den, and welcome to the Dragon Kingdom. And y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.